Welcome to the Bespoke Exercise Program. I'm John Dean, and today we're talking about Volume 2 with Rick and Patty. We're going to continue with a very similar approach where we identify the problem, we define some goals and a working plan, we'll try out some exercises, and then I'll share those with everybody at the end. So I'm going to let Rick speak for himself here at the beginning about the problem.
And I have a very difficult time in social situations because I don't talk. I can't speak in time. I can't get into the conversation many times because I can't either think that fast or get the words out quickly enough. So it limits my social interaction quite a bit.
To be sure, word finding is a very common issue. It's a common complaint in Parkinson's. Unfortunately, it's also a common complaint in most of us as we get older. So the spectrum of when it is a normal age-related phenomenon and when it's something caused by Parkinson's is a little blurry. And that's not unlike many other issues which come along so slowly and insidiously that you might not really notice it until there's a problem. Another one of those insidious complaints is quiet voicing. And although that may be somewhat self-selected, not being aware of how much effort's necessary to produce adequate volume, as Rick describes in the video, it limits how much he communicates and inhibits some of his social interactions, and as a result, that means he's not communicating as much. Those muscles that are involved in communication are now going to be less active, and they're going to atrophy a little bit and become less efficient. So then when Rick gets back into a competitive communication environment, like a group discussion or something outdoors or something with background noise with like a restaurant or a sporting event, the first thing that happens is he tries to overcompensate. He works extra hard to make that less efficient musculature do its job. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone here that when you spend a lot of your excess energy trying to be loud enough to be heard, it's going to take away focus from what you're trying to say. And it's also going to maybe increase your anxiety, contributing to fatigue, which both are going to have an influence on diminishing word finding capacity.
I lost my ability to speak Spanish, which was rather interesting. We used to go to the Dominican Republic for 3 to 4 months a year, and I used to live there, and I lived in Venezuela, so my Spanish was fairly good. But I was taking lessons on the telephone with a friend in Costa Rica on the internet, and I couldn't speak. I couldn't get the words out. And I think that was the first sign of Parkinson's. I stopped taking a class. I couldn't read the newspaper in Spanish out loud. So that was a problem.
This is a really interesting insight. I mean, Rick is a fluent speaker of Spanish, and he's lived abroad, including in the Dominican Republic and Venezuela, as you heard. Now, this difficulty appeared many years earlier than issues with word finding in English language, and it became a precursor to what I think he's discussing now as being a key issue, his issue with keeping up in conversations. Now, this is not really surprising or startling news. You would expect a non-native speaker of Spanish to maybe see earlier or faster deterioration of that second language. But it is an interesting observation, and as you'll see, it actually guides us towards a couple of possible ideas for intervention.
Have you done a course of LSVT or Speak Out? Have you done speech therapy?
I have done that, and on that,
I can hear it now. Can everyone else hear that? Yeah, you turning it on now. I'm like, yes, I have done that.
Yeah. But I actually did it before I went to the Dominican Republic, and it was very difficult to practice down there because we're in very close quarters, and so every time I would practice, I would draw a street crowd. So I didn't really do it.
Yeah.
I think I know what to do, but I just don't practice it.
Well, I've heard that so many times. I remember someone telling me like they fell off the wagon, and I'm like, okay, that's not the terminology I would like to hear. Now, Rick has undergone LSVT, and he worked with a certified clinician in the area, and he got good results, he said initially, but the problem is being able to keep up with the maintenance program activities, and I think that's pretty common. And it's funny, I spent a lot of my time in Portugal, and when I'm over there and I'm practicing my exercises, Josefa has more or less acclimated to that, and she accepts it. We have a decent flat. It's not then the walls are not too thin, people can't really hear us. And so that's good because I need to practice them as a speech therapist. I think it's important to work on them. But when we're traveling abroad, particularly when we're traveling in Europe, I'm much more careful and I calibrate that quite carefully because I don't want to put her in any kind of socially embarrassing situations. And so I feel his pain. And I mean, I think, you could probably speak out clinician maybe try a different version of that and then do the ongoing maintenance. I think it's valuable. But for today, I'm going to show you an exercise that's slightly different. It's not as aggressive. It is not a substitute. I wouldn't do it instead of LSVT. I would use it as an adjunct or a bridge when you can't do the full loud exercises or the full speak out program. So his wife just had some funding to say. She pops in right here at the end.
Speech has definitely been an issue.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. As Patty will tell you.
Suffice to say, she's dialed in. So these are his goals, and I put them all together. So I don't have a video because I've kind of taken it from the pieces here. But essentially, we want to be able to have Rick be have less difficulty being heard, have less difficulty finding the right word, and have less difficulty keeping up in a conversation. Okay, so these are pretty straightforward goals, and you will soon see that there is a bit of a twist, and I manage that in a different way. But before we go there, let me walk through some of the ways that we can improve your ability to communicate that don't involve direct exercise for your voice. I mean, we're definitely going to do some voice stuff, but let me show you some other ways that we can get around this problem first. So the key here is that we're trying to see what we can do about the environment, the activity, and the daily structure of someone's life in order to achieve these goals of being able to communicate more efficiently. Okay, so the first thing I'd say is make sure when you're communicating to avoid being backlit. This is actually Josefa on a Zoom call with me, and we did this to make the point, but as you can see, I can't see her eyes and I can't see her mouth, and all that light coming in from behind makes it really difficult for me to actually focus on her because it's kind of blowing out my sensors a little bit. One-on-one, it's just important to make sure you have enough lighting and that nobody's being backlit. And then when you're talking, you want to make sure that you're getting proper eye contact. That means that you're able to signal when you want to talk or take a turn. You're able to let someone know that you either understand or don't understand them. You do that with eye contact quite frequently. And then the final part of this is I really like to make sure that you're in the right proximity when you're communicating. Now, we've all been guilty of trying to shout up the stairs or down into the basement or whatever. That's not a good way to do this. So by being able to see the whites of their eyes, you're making sure you're close enough to be able to really communicate and do it in an efficient way. Now, another thing I think that people should consider is incorporating some technologies and tools in order to improve their communication. So starting with the smartphone, I think some wireless earbuds can give you a lot of different capabilities. You'll be able to listen better, you'll be able to use it more regularly, and there's tools out there like during the session we did with the Parkinson's Foundation of Western Pennsylvania. There was a gentleman dealing with drooling. Well, there's a great app for signaling when you should swallow, and it works really well if you use one Bluetooth, and this would be why you would get something like that. In the past, I would always just buy the cheapest one that had decent reviews, and I would use it until it died, and I would go to the next one. Since I upgraded my phone to the newest iPhone SE, I've become really fond of these AirPods, the AirPods Pro in particular. They're made by Apple. They are very seamlessly integrated into their own ecosystem. I never have to worry about whether they're going to power on and whether they're going to be paired. So if you're using an iPhone, I think this is probably the best thing you can do, and they have to be on sale right now because they're going to come up with a new model later this year. If you're not an Apple person, if you're using an Android, I think Samsung makes some Galaxy Buds that are probably pretty close to that. I've used some other lower end ones that are still good brands, like these JBLs. I use this for a video that we were doing with an accelerator. I like the noise cancellation on them. I think it could be super valuable for getting rid of distractions. But that's not necessarily everyone needs to have that, but I think it's good. And then once you get away from being on an iPhone or a smartphone and you're talking about using Zoom on your laptop, I really recommend getting this set of headphones that have a microphone in them. So these are just a cheap gamer's headphones. I think I may have paid $30 or less. I'm using this for a music project as well, and so I made sure to get 50 millimeter drivers so that they had a little more bass. But just something that has good sound quality. I like having a closed over the ear because again, it gets rid of all the external sounds. It makes it easier to hear, and you'll have the sound coming right into your ears. And then this microphone allows me to really position it wherever I want. I used this with my dad a while back. My dad's in a writers group, and they go on Zoom. And when this came in, he tried it out that day, and the communication changed immediately. He was much more engaged because he could hear everything really well, and everyone could hear him really well. So I think this is a really good solution. If you're not into using these kind of headphones, you can use something like earbuds, so you can actually move the microphone right in front of your face so that you can be better heard during your calls. Okay, I don't like this as much as the big headphones, but if you're not interested in switching gears, that might be a good opportunity. Now, that thing over in the lower right hand corner is an external speaker with a microphone on it, and I've used these for many years to provide some supplementary amplification. I often recommend using them when you're getting together for family meals, like over the holidays is a great time to implement something like this. And I don't really have a specific brand that I recommend anymore. I've used probably a dozen different ones over the years. I will say that the ones that have a wired microphone seem to be more stable and reliable and last longer. And although it'd be great to use a little wireless mic you fit right here, I've just had more difficulty making it work consistently. I have to do more resetting it or reconnecting it to the wireless and all that kind of stuff. So I'd recommend that, and I would recommend one that's about the size of a normal boxer razor, not the little tiny ones. Okay, so there's really big speakers out there. There's ones that on wheels. That's overkill for your needs. You want something that you can set up wherever you are. You can put it on the table if you're talking in a dining room, or you can take it outside and put it on the bench to you if you're going to be doing some kind of COVID safe meeting. It'll even help by putting the microphone right in front of the mask, and it will improve your speech. So somewhere in the range of $40 to $60 on Amazon. And again, I'm not going to make any product recommendations, but I do think a wired mic is much better than a wireless one. So the takeaway message is that your hearing and your vision are integral components of the way you communicate, and you should do whatever you can to improve your capacity in these two areas, whether that's to improve your capacity online or in person. And as an aside, if you're dealing with any kind of hearing loss or vision issues, and maybe you haven't been in to see an audiologist lately, or you haven't had your eyeglass prescription updated, this is a good opportunity to maybe give yourself a performance boost. There's many studies that show that people who are not able to hear as well, or maybe not seeing everything, are going to present like somebody with some cognitive problems, and it's really all related to the fact that they're not getting a full set of information in because they're not taking it in as the way they did before. So it's worth doing, be worth for your spouse to do as well, and you might see a nice little boost that came from nothing more than the fact that you got the right prescription in your eyeglasses and you got a pair of hearing aids that are making it easier to communicate. Even if you are dealing with mild cognitive changes and stuff like that, this is still going to provide some benefit for you, and I think it's worth exploring. When we start looking at the exercises that Rick's doing on a daily basis, he has a number of stretching activities as well as some other programs, and these are all things that have been designed for him by other clinicians with expertise in other areas, and I'm not really interested in changing that. He's very consistent with his practice. The programs seem to be working for him, and rather than trying to build a completely new exercise program that he would have to do in conjunction with that, so turning his 40 minutes of exercise into an hour and a half, I've opted to actually just add components to his current program to make them more effective, and specifically to provide him with better breath support and better posture, which is going to help alleviate some of the issues related to communication. So you'll see I've added a lengthening breath into his current exercise as well as some voice exercises, and then I've also given him a new vocal function exercise that he can do. I won't say interchangeably. Again, I want to be really clear. LSVT has the gold standard of evidence for Parkinson's. It has what we call level 1 evidence, meaning it has randomized, double-blinded controlled studies, which are very difficult to do in our field. So I do not want to shortchange the benefit of that or an approach similar to it, such as Speak Out, which is currently trying to build that data set. Although we are always hoping for carryover, meaning you learn an exercise in my session, you get stronger, and you take that new healthy voice out in the community, and that's what you use all the time. But realistically, you can't do that. And there are times when you may be fatigued, there may be times when your medications aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and you might just be in a conversation that requires a lot of your mental focus in order to be successful. And that's when a nice little nudge to remember to be loud can be very helpful. So a post-it note on your computer if you're getting ready to go on a Zoom session, or by the telephone, or wherever you need to make sure you get those reminders can be helpful. A wristband can sometimes also provide some benefits as well if it gives you frequent reminders. So digging into the exercises, he has a couple of exercises where he's stretching up against the wall and he's holding that position for at least 30 seconds. So that's when I introduce some breath work into the exercise to make it something that he can do while he's just sitting there holding it in place. Each one of these exercises is going to be available separately on the Foundation's YouTube channel, and then you can also watch the entire program in sequence so you can see how everything fits together. So this is called the lengthening breath.
So we'll begin the lengthening breath by putting your thumbs on your bottom rib. You put your fingers onto your stomach, and you'll apply some gentle upward pressure as you inhale and lengthen. Then you relax and exhale, but try to keep this upright positioning here now. Okay, you may have noticed at the end that you did have your stomach coming out at the end. That's fine, but at the beginning you're going to feel this part going back and down as you get taller. Okay, so let's get into position again. Thumbs on the bottom rib. Here we go. Inhale and lengthen. Now while you're up here, just turn your head a little bit. Stretch from side to side. And you'll feel a little bit of that stretching sensation down there. Now you can exhale. And we'll do the third one now without our hands. So we're going to imagine, we're going to feel the stomach going back and down without having to push on it. Okay, so your hands are by your side. Nice upright position. Inhale. Maybe stretch a little bit. Look from one side and to the other. Exhale.
So this is something he could use as a standalone exercise or as a break throughout the time. But when he has his hands up against the wall doing that, it's easy to integrate this. You know, other things we did were counting out loud and some forced breathing, some resisted breathing. But I'm going to save that for the main videos that you can look on your own time. But the concepts are to add these to his currently existing program to make it more effective and for him to kind of multitask in a way that's not too much of a heavy load. I don't want to make it something unsafe, but I do want to take advantage of the time he's already using to exercise more effectively. Now, for the speech exercise, the voice, I've given him something called the vocal function exercises. And you know, he's not traveling to the Dominican Republic anymore. I still wanted to give him an alternative. And these exercises were developed by a very well-known vocalogist, a speech-language pathologist specializing in the voice named Joseph Stemple. So again, I do make a point of talking, this is not a replacement for LSVT, but there are some things I like about this approach that you can use and add it into the mix. So I'll just play it for here so you can check out what's going on. This is a very shortened sample. The full version's available on the Parkinson's Foundation Western Pennsylvania's YouTube channel.
These are called vocal function exercises, and we're going to have three components to it. So you're going to warm up, you're going to stretch out the muscles here. It's going to be called the glides, and then we're going to do the power exercises. So the first one we're going to do is an E sound, but it's going to be very nasal. And you're going to hold it for as long as you can, but you're not going to be any louder than you need to be to make a nice clear sound. So don't shortchange it on sound, but don't overdo it. Okay, here we go. Ready? You're going from the low note to the high note, and then the high note to the low note. I'm going to use a word like whoop, whoop to bring it up there, and you'll hear my sound is very siren-y, and it has to do with the way I'm focusing the sound. Good. Now we're going to go the other way. So we're going to start high, we're going to go low. The word is boo. So the word is ol. It's like the word whole without the H. So first pitch is whole. Okay, that's a D, or about a D. Okay, ready? So you're going to take a breath in.
And then finally, we wanted to add in something maybe directly focused on word finding. But again, this is not something that's easy for him to sit in front of a computer or his iPhone and watch a screen and do something like that. So we made an activity in which he goes through each letter of the alphabet and he does a movement and he says a letter, and he does the other movement and he says a word beginning with that letter. And then he does both hands up, and now he's saying a sentence that begins with that letter. And that's something he can implement while he's doing other activities. Even if his hands are in a static position, he can still do the cognitive load. Let you take a look at this real quick.
And you're going to begin by saying the letter, and then you're going to say a word that begins with that letter, and then you're going to make a sentence that begins with that letter. So for example, if I wanted to start at the beginning, I would say, A, antelope. I made chili out of antelope. It wasn't very good. Okay, so the idea is with the A, with the letter, that's where the power is. You're just going to work on that sound. A, and then you're going to come up with a word. Now you're not going to stretch out that word. It'll sound crazy, but you're going to say, A, avocado. Avocados are getting pretty expensive. Something like that, right? And so I'm using a nice, clear, loud speech, and I'm also working a little bit on the vowel sounds, which is where really the power is.
Well, I wanted to give you an update in terms of I'm sort of modifying some of the things you suggested, and so what I do this one that you offer, I do back of the wall, and what I do is I do the timing. So I take a deep breath and then I go down, and if I do that 3 times, I know that I've done that at least 30 seconds. So that's good. So that the breathing and the timing of the stretch it coincides. I thought that was kind of interesting. But then the other one is that when I do my standing exercises off the couch, I start the ABCs.
Oh,
I really like the ABCs. I'm not saying them out loud, but I'm saying them softly. But it challenges me to come up with words and sentences, which I think is really good. So I do half the alphabet standing or sitting and standing up off the couch for balance and back. And then when I'm on the floor, stretching my knees, I do that. I go through half the alphabet, and I stretch the other knee, the other half of the alphabet, and I keep on going back and forth. So I enjoy incorporating those in. So, but again, some of them in the corner, I can probably get up to 10 and 3 times.
yeah.
So I know I've done 30 seconds, but it's tough because of just the position of the lungs and pressing back and.
Yep. And the cool thing about that, when you're talking about if you're already feeling some resistance already, you're adding just a little bit more to it. But know that resistance is what you're training. You're improving your core strength so you can improve your breathing,
Right.
so you can get better air. So that this is all. So these are my ways around giving you some strengthening for the breath and some strengthening for the embouchure for the production without quite getting to the loud part.
I'm doing them every morning. So this morning was particularly early, but I got them done. It takes me about 45, 50 minutes to do everything. And
I mean, I think this is a little bit of the yin and yang of where you're at with this, which is you have some exercises that I definitely don't want to mess with that are working, that people who know what they're doing and know your medical situation have put together. So I'm not here to disrupt that world because those are working. Not being able to do all the parts of it, that's kind of par for the course. I really designed this so you can take the ball and run, so you're not stuck looking for the where's this video and put everything. It's just like
Yeah.
letters of the alphabet or different kinds of breathing or resistance breathing or whatever you're doing. You should be able to just integrate, so don't feel like you're failing. If it's like, oh, John gave me 17 and then we did 12, it's like, okay, now we're going to step 4. We're going to share these exercises. So these, if you go to the Parkinson's Foundation of Western Pennsylvania's YouTube channel, you'll see these series here, and you can watch the entire video going from the beginning to end, or you can pick out certain exercises that you like and work with them individually. I hope you enjoy.